Hi, my name is Cheri and welcome to my Stampin' Up studio. Today I'm going to show you a continuation of a little series that I've got going. You may have seen this video, and if you've seen my Facebook Live, if you're coming back to watch this so you can see the up close, then you know where I'm going with it. So I did this video has posted, and it is using the Snowfall Accent Puff Paint by Stampin' Up in a way that will get you using the puff paint all year round. So if you think you don't need the puff paint because you're not going to use very much snow, then think again, because I'm going to show you some other ways to do it. So I did post this tutorial, and then I wanted to show you this card because it's the same background and same general overall layout. But for this one, obviously, instead of the Christmas tree, I've added balloons, and instead of the Happy Christmas, I've got a Happy Birthday. So this one I'm not going to do a tutorial for because it's pretty much the same exact card. One thing I did do, you can go back and watch this tutorial if you've not seen it. On this one, I added more pigment sprinkles. And not only did I add more pigment sprinkles, I let the puff paint dry, which I'm not going to have the chance to do today, but I did let it dry about an hour before I heated it. So it gives it a different effect. You'll see a little bit more of the color, but part of that's due to the fact that I did add more pigment sprinkles. So I'm going to show you today, if you watched this video, the reason I did this kind of a card was because I thought the colors of our current pigment sprinkles, unlike our brush that we've had in the past, were more suited to bright cards. But then as I've been messing with them, I found out that's not the case at all. So what I'm going to do today on this video is I'm going to do one New Year's card, and then I'm going to make the background for a fall card, but it does need time to dry. So I'm going to do the background, and then you'll have to come back to watch the finished card for that. So let's first do the background for our winter card. It's going to be the same kind of general overall technique that I did on the Christmas card if you watched it. But this time I'm going to use our Gorgeous Grape and our Bermuda Bay Brusho. My hands are really dirty because I'm doing this immediately following my Facebook Live. So I did pigment sprinkles, and then I also did dyeing our tulle ribbon, which is a thing I do, and I am going to come back and do it on this. While my hands are dirty, I'm just going to do all this dirty stuff and just get my hands as dirty as possible because it's Friday, and then I'll be done. And then tomorrow when I shower, my hands will be clean for a while. So I've got these 2 colors, and on the other card, I did 5 colors. This one I'm going to do 2. So I'm going to take my Bermuda Bay, and I'm putting a pretty liberal shaking down of the Bermuda Bay. And then I'm going to do the Gorgeous Grape. And I always start at the opposite end when I do these. That way, if that first, because sometimes that first tap, you get a little bit more than you intended because you just don't know how hard to hit it, because you don't know where they've kind of settled. So there we go. We have those 2 colors. Now I'm going to shake this up. You can hear it. If you've not used these, it's liquid. It's not like the old, if you used old puff paint back in the day, it's not like that anymore. So I'm going to do one color at a time. So I'm going to start with this. So put it on here. I'm going to kind of swirl it around. And it may catch some of the other color, but that's okay. I'm just going to do one at a time. I'm going to go over here where I know this one was. And get my Bermuda Bay again. Okay, and now I'm going to go to where I know my Gorgeous Grape is. And I'm not really squeezing this because it's liquid and it kind of comes out on its own. If you feel like it gets a little dry, then give it a tiny little squeeze, but pretty much you don't need to squeeze. Okay, now you can leave it like this. To me, it looks a little squiggly. On my other one, because I ended up with a snowflake card, I wasn't really sure. I was just kind of creating backgrounds. I'm going to do a little bit less than I did. So I'm just, this time I'm not squeezing at all. I'm just kind of giving it so it mixes it a little bit. You don't want it to get muddy, so be careful. Here we go. So now we've got that. I'm gonna let that sit. Then you do want to take, I had a dry one for my live. You want to take a tissue or a wet wipe or something and kind of get that off. And you can see what I likened this to on my Facebook Live is backwash when you give a child a drink. Kind of when you soak that up in there. See, now I just shot that little back out. Like it kind of sucks up a little bit of the pigment sprinkle. So if you see that it's got some up in there, just squish it out. And just don't shake it until you see it's gone. Because I'm going to do another background, I can kind of leave that and I'll squirt that out on my first one. So we've got that. This is for the card I'm going to do today. I'm going to set that aside and I'm going to do everything else for the card before I heat this up. That'll just give it a little bit of time so it doesn't blow when I heat it. If you're making these at home and you want, feel free to let it sit for an hour, even longer if you want. I think you could let it go all the way dry and it would keep some of the shimmer. I am going to do one of those just to see. I just haven't had time yet. So for this one, I'm gonna do a fall look, a fall card. And that's what I was really kind of surprised that I was able to create a fall card with the colors that we have. So I'm gonna take the Bermuda Bay, a tiny bit of the Granny Apple Green, and then our mango. So I want mostly mango because that's our most fallish color. And this time I'm gonna just kind of sprinkle, and you don't want it to be muddy, so you don't want it to be mixed. I'm gonna kind of go like that. And I'm, you know, when Granny Apple Green, not really a color of fall, it's kind of like the beginning of fall, right? Because once, so I'm just gonna add a tiny bit of green. And then I'm going to take Bermuda Bay, which when you put a lot of Bermuda Bay, if you use a little bit of Bermuda Bay, it's Bermuda Bay. If you use a lot, like that, I always do a double take because I think it looks like when it comes out that it's great. If you do a lot, it's peacock. Like you can get, if you get a lot, it looks like peacock. And that's what we want it to look like for this card. And this one is going to, I'm gonna let it sit. This one I may let sit. The other one, when I made the original card, I did heat it. This one I'll let sit for 24 hours or so, maybe 12 hours. Well, it depends on how my Saturday goes, I guess, whether or not okay. So this one I'm gonna kind of do, we're thinking fall, right? Let's do it like a flannel pattern. So let's go back and forth. You do want to remember that nothing, the pigment sprinkles, if they don't get caught in a in some of the puff paint, they're just gonna blow away. So you can't do that. Like all that would just get blown away. So you have to do a more is more with the puff paint. And this one I'm going to go all the way to the edges because this I'm going to send through the Big Shot or the die cut machine. So I want to be able to have as much option of where I want to lay my dies as possible. So kind of just get your lines. See where that, where there's a lot of the Bermuda Bay, it's dark. And it's really more, I would call it much more peacock than I would call it Bermuda Bay. Now, if you're painting with it and you just add a little fraction, it's definitely Bermuda Bay. So if you wanted to do peacock, just use a liberal amount. So there we go. Now I'm going to add just a fraction more of the yellow. It's kind of fun. You can just play with it. And you can see why my hands are dirty. And now it's kind of turning it the nice gold of autumn. It's also kind of turning it some of the colors of the brusho that we used to have. Wipe this off again. Because none of our colors, if you look at these tops, none of those look that dark. But with the mixing and the and remember again, I'm going to put this through a die. So it's not going to be this giant overwhelming pattern. So I'm looking at small spaces, like what might be a small space. Like I might get part of this in one, but that's not going to be a whole leaf. But I do want this general pattern to show up. So there we go. And again, all the way out to the edge because I'm going to use dies. You could also put that through the pumpkin punch. Pumpkin and apple punch. Now you can see on this one again, I've sucked up, even though I didn't intend to. So just get that out. See how it shot that green piece out? And I have made a ton of cards, and we've already used this at a demonstrator event and at camp. So don't worry about using too much of it. So let's move this one aside. This one really needs to be moved aside, and it needs to be moved someplace where my cat isn't gonna hop up on the table and step in it. So this does not look like snow, right? And I have some other ideas of things that I want to try with this. But you know, I always have more ideas than I have time, for sure. Move that here. And we'll hope that's a good spot. Okay, so let's get to the die cuts for the card that we're doing today. So I have the dies from the Frosted Foliage and from the Cheers. Both of these are from the holiday catalog. I'm gonna make a New Year's card, or it could be a birthday card if you know somebody who's got, you know, their birthday at the end of December or in January. So we're gonna send this one through first. And the way this die works is super fun. It's a frame, so you have the option to use it like this. Or if you want to cut the background out when you send it through, put this piece with it. And because we want our beautiful background that we just made to show, I'm gonna send this through. Normally, I might want this beautiful paper. This is the foil from the Noble Peacock foil, and it's really pretty. But the nice thing is, well, you'll see the nice thing in just a second. If you've not used these frames, it's nice to have just that piece. You'll find yourself using that piece all the time. It makes a great label piece. And this one, if you're gonna send it back through, make sure you hold it. And I'm gonna send it back through just because I don't wanna have to poke any of those little snowflakes out while y'all are watching. But it cuts pretty good on its first cut. So here's what it does. You have to pull it because it's got all those snowflake pieces. So you've got your beautiful frame that it cut out. And then, even though it's not wasting that piece, it gave us a really nice stitched label that we can save and we can use that for something else. Or we could put it on the inside of the card. I haven't really decided. We may do this at my camp in December. as a New Year's card, so I may add a New Year's saying, and I may use it from the Frosted Foliage, or I may go to the Cheers set that has the New Year's saying and use it from that. And then because it's got these snowflakes, you have to be careful when you pull this one out, because you know any of those ones that have the really delicate little pieces on them, you just want to be careful that you don't rip them. So just get it started and then just gently pull those around. See my pretty pink fingers? I'm going to try to get my tool video filmed today too, and you'll see why I have nice mambo colored fingers. I generally do my tool first thing in the morning when I'm messing with it before I've showered. That way I might go to the shower, but you know, when you're doing it to film so people can see how you're doing it, then it ends up being in the afternoon. So look how pretty that is. Okay, so we've got that piece. Now we're gonna get a couple of snowflakes, and these come in the set, and it looks like you're getting to like a hooked together snowflake. You're not, you're getting two, they just cut at the same time. So I've got my shimmer glimmer paper and some silver glimmer paper. So either way, whether or not you're doing a birthday card or a New Year's card, this is nice and shimmery. And these only take one pass through. Again, they're kind of delicate, so be careful when you pull them out, because any of those ones with the little points like that can be easily snapped off. There's our Cheers. I'll pull that off as I need it. And then one more set of snowflakes. So all of these are the new dies made by Stampin' Up. And I haven't found any of the new dies that they make need to be run through more than once. I just did it with that frame just because I didn't want to have to poke all of these out. And I haven't tried it just once through, so it may be fine, but one time back is not a waste of my time to find out later that it would have been better, especially while you're all watching. Okay, so let's mount all of this and get everything together just to give our thing a little bit more time to set. So this is Peacock, even though we don't have a Peacock pigment sprinkles. And then we've got our Cheers, which I know that I have lost my little end to my exclamation point. But there's so much going on this card that it doesn't matter. Because I lost it on my original and it didn't matter. You can't see that it's gone. So this time I told myself not to stress over not knowing where it would end up. And when you cut this Cheers out, you might want to save this. There's a lot of extra on here, and you could run some small dies or one of your little punches and get that. Use that silver glimmer, because that's a lot of waste on that one. You do want to make sure you get out all of these tops, because every single letter in this Cheers has a part that needs to be popped. Got those. And then just the middles of these snowflakes. Then we just have to mount it together. So let me show you the background as it is now, because when you heat it and the stuff puffs, see, here it is now, and look how peacock that really is. I mean, it couldn't be much more. But when you heat it and it hasn't had as much time to set, it does get a little, like the puff paint will turn it a little bit lighter. And you just heat it if you're done. And it's better if you just do one small area at a time. See how it's going lighter? And this one I don't mind so much if it gets a little bit of that snow look, because obviously we're putting snowflakes on it. And then how much it turns white and how much it puffs depends on how much is actual paint and how much has just been drugged through. You can see those lines in the middle. It's just color really that was drugged through. There we go. Let's just stick all this together and we're done. So when it cools, it's hard. And I'll show you that on the one that I've already made, because that one has sat for more than 24 hours. But because I'm mounting this one right away, I'm going to try to not press on it very hard and then go back later and press everything down. So when you do that, it's nice to have, here, take your pick tool and just like press it down into it. And that's a little crooked. Oh well. Again, there's a lot going on this card. So we'll get our frame up there. And then stick this on here. This color's just yummy. Nice and royal. Oh, I just ran out of adhesive. I always like when you run out, you know, on the one go. Let me see if I have some. Don't think I have any snail, which is kind of a bummer because it's going to be hard to stick that cheers on. It's going to be hard to stick all of it on actually with some fuse. Again, just push that on, and then later when it's all dry, then you can lift up these edges and add a little bit more adhesive. Okay, do I have a, this is not going to be fun with this, but we'll make it work. So take your, if you have a dimensional thing that's almost empty, that works well with these. Because as you go over the top, it works better with the snail, but it resists. It's working pretty good with my fuse. Because this back here is non-stick, so the dimensionals don't stick to it. So get this so it almost goes off the edge of the card, so it gives it some nice interest. And again, later, if you want, you can go add a glue dot or something if you feel like something's not sticking. That's bothering me. Now I can get down. And then just add your snowflakes. You know what I'm going to do for that? I'm going to grab my glue dots. I'm afraid the fuse is going to tear those. Let's do one here. Let's do there's two big ones and two small ones. You don't want them all like right in the same spot. So let's do one there. Do a little one here because my paper's crooked, so that will take care of that. And you don't want them in a 4-corner pattern, so since I have 3, I don't want one there. So let's do one here, which is not where they are on my other card because my other card wasn't mounted crooked. So now we've got the cheers, and it looks good here. Use glue dots on it too, just because my fuse is, any of these things that are tiny like this, the fuse can tear. And the glue dots are super sticky, and it's only gonna really take 2 and it'll hold them perfect. So if you put one towards the beginning of your word and one towards the end, you do want to be careful when you stick it down, because it'd be harder to pick it back up if it's not in the right place. And I'm just not going to put the exclamation point on because it doesn't need it. They know we're excited. Okay, and then we have the holiday rhinestones. So let's add some of these up here. These are in a different place than my other ones were because my card's just different, but that's okay. You can put them wherever you want. You can put snowflakes wherever you want, wherever it looks best for the way your card is. No, I'm videoing. That would be my husband home from work. I did not warn him that I was taping, and so, you know, you wouldn't think that I do it all the time. And it's always shocking to me when he comes home when I'm talking to myself. So there you go. How pretty is that? With some pigment sprinkles that are these colors, you can end up with something that looks all festive and ready for the new year. Here's my other one with different placements, and there's the mess it makes. But with the background of the squigglies, it looks like a snowstorm. You can't even really tell that my placement is so incredibly different. I will show you what this is looking like, even just with that short passage of time. You can see how it's already starting to dry. And that's why my other ones, they only took about an hour, maybe not even an hour before I heated them, maybe half an hour. So it will dry on its own, and it doesn't dry puffy. Down here where it's starting to dry, where it's a thinner coat, it has like the tiniest bit of puff to it. It doesn't do the snow puff thing. So there you go. Hope you enjoy that. I hope it gives you a way that you can see using this snowfall accent paint way past December and January. Have a great day. Bye.